afternoon all. So yeah, we can tell that it's the last panel of the day, but yeah, I have to say we're all very glad to be here. It's been a pretty intense couple of days, but yeah, I think we have a very interesting panel planned for you today, and yeah, I think we're going to spend a very interesting hour together. So our session is on Blue Horizons, sustainable visions for future visions for sustainable islands. So my name is Adriana Salazar. I work as a sustainable blue economy expert at the Secretariat of the Union for the Mediterranean. For those of you who might not be aware, the UFM is an intergovernmental organization bringing together 43 member countries, so all of the countries of the EU, plus 16 countries from the south and the east of the basin, of the Mediterranean basin. So let's say from Finland all the way to the north, to Mauritania to the south, including Jordan, Turkey, Palestine, and Israel are both member countries of the UFM, and most of the Balkan countries also to the east of the basin, with the mandate, with the mission to promote a regional dialogue, cooperation, stability, integration, sustainable development, really at Euro-Mediterranean level, so at basin-wide level. I wanted to say that, of course, we do cooperate on a number of, let's say, key joint priority areas. Sustainable blue economy, in all its diversity, in all of its richness, including a wide range of economic sectors, is one of those joint priority areas, including, of course, sustainable maritime and coastal tourism. So just to say that just to give you an idea, let's say, our policy mandate is structured around the 2021 UFM Ministerial Declaration on Sustainable Blue Economy, covering 10 priorities, including, as mentioned, sustainable maritime and coastal tourism. And so what I want to say is that at least at Mediterranean level, sustainable blue economy as a whole has proven to be, over the years, extremely fertile, extremely strong ground for dialogue and cooperation, really acting as a glue in the region at all times, and really acting as a catalyst for sustainable development, allowing us to reap a wide range of environmental, social, and economic benefits across the basin, so both north and south. And so, in this regard, for this approach, let's say, to really work, we really need to look at maritime and coastal tourism very closely in the Mediterranean, given the sheer size and strategic importance of the sector for the region, and consequently also considering its high potential to actually drive the blue and green transition forward in the Mediterranean. And in this regard, Mediterranean islands, but also other islands in the world, of course, in other regions of the world, are, on one hand, I want to say, emblematic of many of the challenges that we're facing today. I don't need to tell you that islands are uniquely vulnerable, for instance, to climate change. In the Mediterranean in particular, as you know, is a hotspot for climate change. It's actually warming 20% faster than the global average. Islands are also, let's say, hotspots for biodiversity loss. They are uniquely vulnerable to external shocks. They are faced with limited resources. And of course, they are increasingly having to deal with the challenges and pressures from tourism. But on the other side of the coin, I want to say there's a lot of positive developments taking place in islands. Islands really do have the potential to be labs, really, for innovation, testing grounds for innovative practices, new technologies, new governance models and approaches. So we really believe that islands have the potential in the Mediterranean and beyond to really lead the way on the sustainable maritime and coastal transition, so to really be pioneers in this regard. So to discuss this, we're joined today by three esteemed panelists and colleagues. So first of all, I have to say that maybe this wasn't mentioned at the beginning, but we have the great honor to be joined by His Excellency, Mr. Mudrik Soraga, Minister of Tourism and Heritage of Zanzibar. So many thanks for being with us today. It's really a great honor. We're joined also by Ms. Teresa Bobino, tourism expert at the UN Tourism Global Barometer, and by Mr. Pere Joan Planas, Director of AETIB, which is the agency for tourism strategy of the Balearic Islands. So the way we're going to structure our panel, we have roughly an hour. We're going to go with three sort of interventions from our panelists, and then we're going to close with a quick round of questions. Let's see if we have enough time. So I would like to start with Mr. Minister. Again, a pleasure to have you. And I mean, we would like you maybe to just share in general terms, to enlighten us a little bit about the progress that's taking place in Zanzibar. You are extremely active in terms of trying to protect the extremely beautiful and rich natural resources of your island, while capturing the many benefits that you also have to reap from tourism activities, of course, in your island. So how are you leveraging the transformative potential of sustainable maritime coastal tourism in Zanzibar? And I would say you have roughly 10 minutes, but so the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I would like to, first of all, take this opportunity to thank the organizers for extending an invitation to our delegation. We've been received very well. We've had a wonderful couple of days since our arrival in Almeria, and all the courtesies that have been extended to us have been extremely wonderful. So we're very grateful for that. And also, we are very happy to be participants of the Sunnet Blue Congress. This is our first engagement, and we hope it's going to be one among the many in the very near future. So Zanzibar is just a bit of a highlight about what Zanzibar is. We are a semi-autonomous region off of the coast of East Africa, about 25 nautical miles from mainland Tanzania. And our key economic driver for the island is actually tourism, which contributes more than 30% of the GDP and contributes around 80% of all foreign currency. So tourism is a very important aspect and a key driver of our economy. And the nature of tourism is that it's dependent on how you take care of your environment, how you administer the way tourists behave, and in terms of the infrastructure and the facilities, and how you take care of your beaches and the coastal line and all of those things. So we are very cognizant of the fact that we have to do a lot of work in terms of addressing the sustainable tourism practices, which forms a very critical component in terms of building confidence, but also attracting tourists to be able to come and visit in our shows. We have our key economic policy, which is known as the Blue Economy. And the Blue Economy encompasses around 5 different sectors. Key among those factors is tourism, but also in that aspect we have fisheries, we have marine transport and ports, we have oil and gas exploration, as well as ICT as it relates to digitization of the tourism sector or the blue economy sector in general. For the coastal areas, we have a number of MPAs, marine protected areas, that are being governed through different modalities. Some are administered through the public-private partnership, some are administered through community initiatives, and some are administered purely from the government. So it's a mixed strategy that we have. Some are working very well, some have still a few challenges that we have to overcome, and some are still a work in progress. But in general, what we have discovered for the MPAs, the ones that actually work the best are the ones that have a much more closer community engagement and are driven from the grassroots and have the ownership of the community. Those are the ones that we see thriving and are more sustainable in terms of administration, but also in terms of the reaped benefits from these MPAs. Generally, what we are currently undertaking are 2 major initiatives. One is to finalize our marine spatial planning, because this is something that you have to have in place in order to set up a proper framework on the use of your coastal areas. So we are currently engaged with a number of institutes, including the Tony Blair Institute, to finalize the marine spatial planning through the Ministry of Blue Economy. And the other initiative that we have is the Zanzibar Green Legacy, which is mainly based on how do we initiate practices for sustainable tourism by focusing on conservation of the environment and protecting our forestry and our coastal zones. So as an island, of course, it has a very fragile ecology, and because of the population growth, currently we are about 1.8 million, but we also receive around 650,000 tourists who are coming into Zanzibar. So you can imagine with that limited space on the island and the growing population growth and adding the number of tourists that are coming in, it leads to a huge strain on not only on the resources but also on the environmental impact that comes with that. So we've commissioned a study known as the carrying capacity for the island in order to determine exactly what is our capacity of carrying the number of tourists that are that can come in on the islands. And this study is very important because at the moment, as a Minister for Tourism, I have a very simple KPI, which is just the number of tourists. So every year I'm told you need to add X number of tourists to come in. But the equation is much more complicated than that. So that's why we had to commission this study in order to determine our readiness and our preparedness as far as the social services that are required, whether it's road, water, electricity, all the essential services that are needed to accommodate tourists. And so we are seeing some of the effects at the moment. Currently, for example, when you talk about electricity consumption, Zanzibar, we use about 100 megawatts of electricity. But the demand now is almost at 150. So you would experience power shortages in the north or in the south, and that just goes to show the amount of strain that tourism is providing onto the island because of the increased investment and the increased demand for electricity. But going back to our coastal area management and the environment, of course, we are happy to note one of the primary reasons why we're here is that we have a partnership with EcoPlanet to engage with them on the Blue Flag initiative, which hopefully this would also provide that much needed intervention as far as proper management of our coastal areas, and also to provide more input into the MPA's training and capacity building for our rangers and the community at large. So generally, what we are trying to see is how do we get the balance between coastal usage as it relates to economic activities of the local population, as well as the tourists that are coming in and they want to use the coastal line. It's a very delicate balance and one that is very sensitive, and the way you approach it has to be balanced as well, so that you avoid any type of constraints or push and pull that is, can be a bit detrimental and perhaps even scare away tourists from coming in, because there's this competition of the usage of the coastal line. So in terms of the specifics, currently I would say that one of the key areas that we are trying to address is to balance between the seaweed farmers who are using the coastal shore areas to do their seaweed farming activities, as well as the kite surfers who want to use that area for kite surfing. And as the days keep going, the geography of the area it gets diminished because the seaweed farmers are expanding their horizon in terms of their activities. And the kite surfers, they're limited now in terms of the area that they want to use. So how do you address that particular challenge? Obviously, you can't tell someone to say, well, we don't want you here, or you don't do this activity. At the end of the day, that's their livelihood, and it's something that they've been doing for generations. Maybe it's been running in the family for centuries. So how do you either train and retrain, maybe for them to engage in another activity that is equally productive or that gives back a broader return, or reallocation to another area where they can continue to do their activities. So on an individual activity level, we try to approach each case in its own specifics that it provides for that particular time or for that particular activity. But broadly speaking, we have to finalize the marine spatial planning so that we can identify clearly what areas are going to be for economic activities for X, Y, and Z, what areas are going to be for sporting activities, what areas are going to be for leisure, and all of that stuff. I think once we have that in place, then it will make it much easier in terms of the administration and oversight and, of course, enforcement. But the common denominator into all of this is the community and how you leverage them and their buy-in into the conservation areas. And we saw this, that the ones that actually reap the benefits directly from conservations are the ones who are the champions, and they lead the fight in terms of administration. And so the government doesn't really have to do much intervention because the communities themselves, they take a leading role in terms of all of that conservation activity that needs to be done. But on the other hand, if you look at Zanzibar, the uniqueness of the area, it has some of the most diverse marine biodiversity than any other place within the region. So you also have a lot of cases of overfishing with the fishermen. And so we've also tried to establish within the MPAs non-take zones so that the fishermen can at least allow for these areas to kind of breed maybe after 6 months and then be able to come in, fish, and then let the cycle continue in that sense. And this program has worked very well. Of course, not in all the areas, but in general, for the most part, it has worked. It has worked very well in our case. And since our time here, of course, we've had a few bilateral meetings and engaged with potential partners that have come up with various solutions that we think would work very well for us in Zanzibar. And so we are more than happy to take some of these solutions that have been shared with us in order to go and add further value into what we are already doing. And I have to acknowledge this. In Spain, I think, is the benchmark in terms of how this country is managing its tourism. I know you have a similar problem of over-tourism as well. I was very shocked by the numbers. I was told that it's 90 million, 95 million every year. So I can only imagine what the country has been going through. But at the same time, if you look at it proportionally with Zanzibar, we could say that we have a similar case. The only difference between us and Spain is perhaps on the infrastructure. We still need to do more in that area, making sure that we have adequate roads, making sure that we are able to use renewable energy as an alternative source of energy for the island, as well as proper waste management and wastewater management as well, to recycle our water and all of that stuff. So in general, the destination is it's a very viable destination. A lot of people like to come to Zanzibar because it does combine the best of both worlds, where you get the coast as well as the bush for mainland Tanzania, for those people that are looking to go for safaris and to go and see the wild animals. So we have a very unique product that I think the future of it is very bright, and the number of tourists that are going to be coming in is going to increase. So mitigating measures have to be established beforehand. before things maybe spiral out of control. And our emphasis now for the renewed strategy is to focus on high-end, high-value tourists instead of mass tourism. But that will require a lot of buy-in from stakeholders, a lot of review of the infrastructure and the type of infrastructure that we have. And of course, to make a few sacrifices, both from the public as well as from the private sector. And I think I will end there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, Minister Soraga, I have to say thank you so much for this, I think, very, very comprehensive overview. And I think I mean, what else to say? I think you touched really on the key points. So you have a lot on your plate. As you said, a very complex equation. But I think from what you've presented today, it's evident that you're, tackling it, I think, beautifully with a lot of enthusiasm and with a lot of, careful planning, future planning. And yeah, I think also through a multi-stakeholder approach, I think that you've understood, right, the need to involve, all stakeholders, community members, those that are actually going to be impacted by the policies, that you're going to have to increasingly put in place, right? You touched on the importance of data. So we heard from yesterday's fantastic keynote speech in the morning, we just don't have enough data, right, on sustainable economy because it's such a cross-sectoral, multi-sectoral, let's say, approach. So yeah, you really need to home in on those KPIs. And so yeah, and I also very much liked that you touched on the point of sacrifice, right? So we want to, to make sure that sustainable tourism can keep growing, in islands and in locations such as Zanzibar. But for this, inevitably, this is almost a bit of a taboo topic in many of these panels. We are all going to have to also balance, the interests of the different stakeholder groups, and in some cases even make some sacrifices. But I think, and I'm sure you do as well, that this can be done intelligently with strategy and also by leveraging forums such as this, to exchange. So I think in the Mediterranean as well, I think we have, experiences to, we can gain a lot from your experiences as well, for sure, and from other regions of the world. So again, thank you so much. And so without further ado, we're going to move on to our next speaker. So from the Indian Ocean, let's say, to a bit more of the Pacific, probably. So Teresa Agobino, her background actually is in environmental engineering. She's currently serving as sustainable tourism consultant for the United Nations World Tourism Organization, the UNWTO. The Union for the Mediterranean actually has an active MOU with the WTO, so it's really a pleasure to have you with us today. You're also part of the international expert panel of UNWTO's World Tourism Barometer. So we're going back to data, a publication aiming to regularly monitor the short-term tourism trends to inform and educate global tourism stakeholders, including policymakers, on enhanced data-based decision-making. You're also very involved on the ground, on projects on the ground in different regions of the world. So I think you'll highlight through a bit of an interactive exercise, but don't worry, we won't make you speak. We're aware, we're all a bit tired, it's the end of the day, but we're going to engage you through a bit of a thought exercise, let's say. Right. And you're also actually a teacher and educator, so working with different types of stakeholders on tourism certification for hotels, operators, and so on. So with this, I leave the audience in your hands, and I think I also have a role to play in this exercise. So please, the floor is yours. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Adrian, and thank you so much, everyone, for having me. I know that this is the last panel, so you might be a little bit tired. So that's why I thought it's not actually an interactive exercise, but it's an unconventional way of talking about the sustainable touristic strategy that have been developed in Peru, in Taquile, which is a tiny island on Lake Titicaca, south of Peru. I was with them. I worked with them, with the local government, and also with local community to implement and to define this strategy. And I strongly believe that when it comes to sustainable touristic strategy, it's not about just the measure that we implement, but also the deep connection that we are able to generate with visitors and tourists in general. So if you just trust me for a couple of minutes and you want to close your eyes, we can travel together, and I can bring you to Taquile, which is this island in Peru. So please just close your eyes for a couple of moments, and we will travel together. So it's early morning when we step off the boat, and the first thing you notice is the quiet. Can you feel it? The air is crisp, and for a moment it feels like time is self-exposed. You look around, there are no cars, no granddaughters, no bustling crowds, just simple path winding up the hills and a handful of islanders waiting to greet us with calm smiles. As we begin our walk up to the wheel, our guide Philippe tells us, on Taquile, we only allow a small number of visitors at a time. We have learned that fewer guests mean more balance.
Fewer people, more balance.
Such a surprise. Everywhere else, tourism is all about growth, more visitors, more building, more consumption. But here, the focus is on less. Less intrusion, less consumption, but more connection and more sustainability.
What if more places in the world could do this? What if more islands could slow down and keep the balance rather than chasing growth at all costs?
As we walked deeper into the village, we came across a group of local artisans, mothers, fathers, and children working together in a cooperative, weaving vibrant textile. Every piece tells a story of a family, seasons, and heritage. Philippe explained that every family on the island has a role, and the revenue from tourism stays with the community. It's not about outside investors. It's not about maximizing profit. The community owns everything here. Everything is managed locally. From tourism stays with the island. It funds schools, healthcare, and community projects. And importantly, everyone has a say in how tourism is managed.
Can you imagine this? An island where the revenue stays local, where every person has a voice, where outsiders or no outsiders or few outsiders come in to dictate how things should be, where instead of exploitation, there's empowerment.
By midday, we sit with a group of women who are weaving. Juana, one of the women, hands us on a spindle of yarn, laughing as she watches us struggle with it. She explained that each pattern, each color has a meaning, a message that connects the past to the present. What incredible is that there are no performing for us. It's not a show for tourists, it's their life. This is who they are, and they are not trying to impress us. They are inviting us to connect, to understand, to feel the weight of their story, the connection with their ancestor. This isn't a performance, it's a relationship.
And I think that's the end of the...
What would they look like if other places, other communities could share their heritage like this, not for profit, not for spectacle, but as a gift, a connection? What if we could embrace tourists as a relationship and not a transaction? Later in the day, we take a walk along a quiet path with breathtaking views of the lake. There are no cars, no roads, no sign of industrialization. On Taquile, everything is connected by footpaths. Visitors are encouraged to walk slowly, to take in landscape without disturbing it. Felipe invited us to join in a small cleanup along the shore. It's something that they do regularly here, a ritual where both locals and visitors share responsibility for keeping the island clean. It's a reminder that on Taquile, the land, the water, and the future are holy. What if tourism wasn't about using the land? What about caring for it? What if every visitor, every island was part of a living ecosystem, where conservation wasn't a side project, but the heart of the experience? Imagine what would happen if more islands embraced this kind of ownership. Tourism is often seen as something that takes, but here it gives. It gives back to the land, to the community, and to the future. And then, as the sun begins to set, we prepare to leave. I find myself standing at the edge of the island, looking back at Taquile. I feel like I have been shown something precious. A place where tourism doesn't consume but sustain, where visitors are intruders but partners, and where everything from the landscape to the culture is a reflection of the community value. What if this could be the future for Ireland everywhere? So if you are ready, just, open your island, open your eyes, and actually the idea to, with Taquile and with this path that I hope you enjoyed is to show actually that Taquile can be a model of blue horizon. It's not exactly a dream, but it's a reality. And the idea is that everyone is interconnected, like people, land, community, visitors. So there is a deep connection between each of them. And the most important thing is that they are taking care of the land and their story, their history, their heritage, and also their ancestor. I think that this is the most important thing that we can bring actually from this inspirational story, and just let's imagine that the Mediterranean fill up with all this island, with of course all the uniqueness of the place, of the culture, of the people, but at the same time the capability of bringing the visitor and the tourist inside the place itself. So actually, the idea is that whenever we think about sustainable tourism strategies, we should take into consideration that it's not a top-down approach, shouldn't be a top-down approach. It's always a bottom-up approach where all the stakeholders, all the ecosystem are involved in the process. Otherwise, there would be someone that can positively benefit from the presence of tourists, and the other one who are paying the negative impact of the tourism. So actually, Taquile, which is like a closed space, exactly as Zanzibar, even though we know that every single place and community is incredibly interconnected, but if we consider Ireland as a closed ecosystem, we understand that we have actually the possibility to not only test new strategies and new technologies, but also measure and identify the kind of impact that we are generating. And I think that for this reason, islands are really precious because they are giving us the possibility to pilot and to test on a pilot scale, which is exactly the example of Taquile.
Wonderful.
So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for sort of taking us on this journey. I hope we could all sort of play into that. I saw the minister absolutely did, and even closed his eyes. So I think that was actually very, very interesting. And also, I think you touched on the emotional side of tourism as well, right? I think there was a panel throughout these 3 days specifically on that, which I think is was an extremely interesting topic. And also, in terms of the experiential type of tourism, more mindful tourism that we want to promote. In all areas, but maybe in particular in islands because of their heightened vulnerability as well. And also, I think you touched upon the idea also the need that we have to change mindsets, right, little by little. So thanks a lot, Teresa. I think that was a lot of fun, and thank you. And so just in the interest of time, last but certainly not least, we're going to go to our final speaker of the panel. So we're going back to the Mediterranean, so full circle, Mr. Pere Joan Planas. He is director of AETIB, the Agency for Tourism Strategy of the Balearic Islands. Engineer by trade, you've developed a long career in public service, working at the intersection of information and communication technologies and tourism in many cases, but also on energy policy, among other key priorities. So I think you're very familiar with some of the unique challenges of islands. The Balearic Islands are maybe among, I don't have the exact numbers in mind, but maybe you'll share them with with us are among the most visited islands in the Mediterranean, for sure. So a lot of pressure, but also a great deal of opportunities in terms of advancing towards more sustainable maritime and coastal tourism models. So the floor is yours, and yeah, we look forward to hearing about your work in the Baleares. So, Vera.
Gracias, Adriana. Gracias a la organización por la invitación a estar en este congreso. Muy interesante. Y la verdad es que después de las palabras casi poéticas que nos ha dedicado Teresa, yo me tengo que poner en modo ingeniería y casi seré un poco más árido, ¿no? Pero como estamos en familia, ya quedamos ya pocos aquí valientes. Bueno, os voy a contar un poco qué estamos haciendo actualmente en las Islas Baleares, ¿no? Las Islas Baleares es un destino turístico, ya diríamos, maduro, es decir, desde los años 60, llevamos más de 60 años prácticamente continuos de crecimiento en turismo. Y claro, y esto nos da un caso singular y especial en la relación a otras islas del mundo y los desafíos que nos plantea, digamos, la sostenibilidad y la regeneración que tenemos que afrontar en los próximos años. Somos, como se conoce, somos 4 islas, unos 5.000 kilómetros cuadrados, 1.300.000 habitantes, una población parecida a Zanzíbar, con 18 millones de visitantes, casi 3.000 establecimientos hoteleros, juntamente con las viviendas vacacionales y demás, esto nos arroja casi 600.000 plazas turísticas, 600.000 plazas turísticas y con un problema añadido de mucha oferta ilegal, que con lo cual aún añade más plazas turísticas y en un escenario de demanda casi infinita mundial, porque todo el mundo quiere viajar, todo el mundo se quiere desplazar, visitar otras cosas, en un escenario como digo, de demanda casi infinita. Evidentemente poner límites al número de habitaciones o al número de camas es fundamental para poder digamos, limitar el número de nuestros residentes, ¿no? En este sentido, ya adelanto que hemos tocado techo y hemos tocado un límite que nos estamos replanteando en este momento y que, si me da tiempo, lo voy a contar. Claro, he dado unas cifras, digamos, macro de nuestra situación. 35% de nuestro Producto Interior Bruto depende del turismo y más del 90% de nuestra economía depende del turismo. Entonces, casi somos monocultivo turístico. Esto es la realidad y para nosotros además es una industria y una oportunidad para otros tejidos empresariales que pueden exportar su tecnología a otros entornos, ¿no? ¿Y qué pasa con el tema medioambiental? El verano pasado se llevó a cabo una encuesta. Tengo que reconocer que no es una encuesta especialmente potente y que habrá que volver a matizar, pero de nuestros visitantes, casi un tercio de ellos reconocía que el tema medioambiental como que no le interesaba mucho. Un tercio. Nuestros visitantes no son extraterrestres, es decir, son gente como nosotros y, por tanto, hay que pensar que en general toda la población, al menos la europea, que es la que nosotros tenemos más próxima, un tercio reconocería que no está muy interesado por temas medioambientales, a pesar que todo el mundo reconoce que en su casa más de un 50% recicla y que también muchos de ellos que reconocen que están sensibilizados por temas medioambientales, cuando están de vacaciones y están de ocio, como que las cosas se relajan mucho más y, por tanto, ciertos hábitos sostenibles dejan de serlo en el momento en que uno está de vacaciones. Y esto nos hace replantear un tema estratégico, que es que tendremos que hacer algo sin demonizar a nuestros visitantes. Nuestros visitantes siempre son bienvenidos, pero sin menospreciar a nadie, evidentemente, nos tendrá que llevar a otras estrategias para ver cómo acomodamos esto en los parámetros de sostenibilidad, circularidad, etcétera, ¿no? Para ello, Nosotros contamos con diversas leyes, actualmente con nuestra última ley, en este sentido yo creo que fue pionera en el año 2022, con medidas urgentes para la sostenibilidad y circularidad del turismo, ¿no? Y esta ley obligaba a muchas cosas, entre ellos que los establecimientos turísticos tienen que plantear unos planes de circularidad en sus consumos habituales de agua, energía, alimentos, materiales, residuos, etcétera, ¿no? Con unos objetivos de disminución paulatina a partir de este año, 24-25 y demás, ¿no? Luego también obligábamos a un consumo de producto local, producto agroalimentario, que iba desde un 3 a un 5%, dependiente del tipo de establecimiento, de que consumiera producto local, ¿no? Este tema del producto local crea un cierto debate porque las islas, a pesar de ser islas, estamos, yo diría que muy continentalizadas por nuestras fortísimas conexiones tanto por avión como por barco con el continente, ¿no? Y, por ejemplo, un producto típico de las islas, que son unas galletas que se producen en la isla, pero si la harina procede del continente, entonces ya no es un producto local a pesar de haber sido producidas ahí. Y esto está creando una serie de definiciones con los organismos de agricultura para ver en fin, tener unas clasificaciones de lo que se podría considerar producto local o no producto local. También se obligaba a temas de camas elevables, en este caso sería un tema más social para la salud laboral de los trabajadores y las trabajadoras de camareras de pisos, que habitualmente podríamos sintetizar así, digamos que no se tuvieran que agachar tanto, entonces para poder trabajar pues las camas de los establecimientos hoteleros tienen que ser elevables. Ciertamente, y habría que apuntar en este punto, que el concepto de oferta ilegal y las últimas manifestaciones que se han producido contra el turismo, yo diría más bien manifestando un hecho de masificación turística que tenemos. Nuestro ratio, pensar que estamos por cada habitante 16 visitantes, 1 a 16. Esto ha hecho que tal vez ahora las prioridades se han focalizado más en detener la masificación que no en preocuparnos por los temas de sostenibilidad, pero no significa que no estemos trabajando en ello, ¿no? Y para esto, ¿qué hemos hecho? Pues dos cosas. Uno, atacar al sector privado. Cuando digo atacar me refiero, voy a cambiar el verbo, diría apoyar al sector privado. Y lo otro que estamos haciendo con la parte pública. Claro, la parte privada es muy importante, fundamental. Afortunadamente, yo tengo que defender la iniciativa privada, que es un sector muy dinámico, innovador. Yo creo que lo han demostrado. Podríamos considerar que el desarrollo turístico, económico en nuestras islas, yo creo que podría considerarse un caso de éxito. 60 años de crecimiento continuo. Otra cosa es que a costa de algunas externalidades negativas que tenemos que replantearnos, ¿no? En este sentido, recientemente, en este último año, hemos sacado ayudas públicas para la innovación, investigación, especialmente en procesos relacionados con los ciclos de agua, energía, residuos en los establecimientos hoteleros, calderas, eliminar todo lo que sean ya calderas de combustión fósil, especialmente el diésel. Quedará ya poco en temas de gas y, digamos, ya un proceso de electrificación de todas estas calderas. Todo el tema de la eficiencia energética, ayudas para mejora de aislantes, cubiertas, ventanales, producción fotovoltaica, etcétera. Planes de circularidad, también se les ha ayudado a que puedan elaborar sus planes de circularidad y también ayudas para poder adquirir estas camas elevables, ¿no? Claro, el sector privado trabaja muy duro y tengo que reconocer y hay que darles su mérito, a pesar que no tenemos aún unos indicadores muy firmes en este sentido, pero sí que muchas cadenas hoteleras, las grandes y medianas cadenas hoteleras que además tienen proyección internacional, origen balear, pero que tienen proyección internacional, pues están fuertemente comprometidas con la sostenibilidad. Trabajan para temas de residuos alimentarios cero. Hay incluso algunas cadenas que ya están ensayando softwares para ajustar las raciones y la cantidad de comida según el tipo de cliente para evitar disminuir los residuos orgánicos. Yo creo que es un tema importante, reducir, reciclar. Primero hay que reducir, luego hay que reciclar. En este caso vamos a intentar reducir. Los residuos orgánicos, otras cadenas hoteleras ya los están separando de forma muy efectiva y esto está acabando en composto orgánico. Este composto orgánico luego se utiliza en la agricultura y vuelve a producir productos de huerta que se vuelven a utilizar en los propios hoteles como un ejemplo, yo creo, de circularidad. Están también sensibilizados en la formación en temas de sostenibilidad para los empleados, la reducción de plásticos de un solo uso. Algunos ya están ensayando también con calderas de hidrógeno de procedencia verde, por decirlo de alguna forma. Se coopera con productores locales, también hay proyectos de inserción social, se reciclan colchonetas, flotadores y especialmente en el tema del agua, ¿no? El tema del agua me voy a detener un momento, que es muy importante para una isla, como en nuestro caso islas. El tema del agua tal vez sea nuestro factor más determinante para la sostenibilidad, ¿no? Y es el aprovechamiento del agua que tiene que ser regenerada. El otro día, en un estudio que se publicó la Asociación Española de Campos de Golf, dijo que aproximadamente en España un 45% del agua que se utiliza en campos de golf tiene origen recuperado, reciclado. En cambio, en Baleares estamos en el 98%. Entonces, claro, desde una ley del año 2012 que se obliga a los campos de golf a no utilizar agua potable para poder regar los campos de golf, sino tener que usar aguas regeneradas para este uso. También hay experiencias en la descarbonización de barcas. El ocio náutico es muy importante en nuestras islas, el componente náutico es fundamental. Y hay experiencias ya digamos, de algunas empresas que ya ponen a disposición de los usuarios en el campo de ocio, el ocio turístico, embarcaciones ya electrificadas, ya en este sentido para reducir la huella de carbono, ¿no? Y la parte pública, no sé cómo vamos de tiempo, si me das unos minutos,
Vamos bien, sí.
un par de minutos.
Un par de minutos. Sí.
He explicado un poco la parte privada, que entonces yo creo que se están trabajando en este sentido muy positivo. Y la parte pública, bueno, nosotros tenemos que trabajar para dos cosas, ¿no? Una es para limitar nuestro crecimiento en cantidad y tendremos que crecer en calidad. Esto ya no tiene vuelta de tuerca, digamos, ¿no? Entonces, todo lo que sean potenciar planes de calidad, y cuando digo calidad es calidad del destino y calidad del producto. Calidad del destino, que depende especialmente de la administración pública, esto implica, esta mañana lo contaba el alcalde de Calviá, municipio de las Islas Baleares, pues todo lo que es acondicionar correctamente todos los espacios urbanos. Por ejemplo, en el caso de la Posidonia, por ejemplo, el Ayuntamiento de Calviá retira los restos muertos de esta planta, aunque habitualmente llamamos alga, pero realmente es una planta. Se retiran estos restos, se disfruta de la playa en los meses de verano y pasado la temporada turística se vuelve a depositar toda la Posidonia muerta, otra vez se vuelve a poner en la línea de costa. De esta forma, digamos, los temporales evita que se lleven la arena de las playas, ¿no? También hay todo un tema de protección, evidentemente, de la Posidonia. Para nosotros la Posidonia es la planta a tener que salvar. La Posidonia es una planta submarina, gran productora de oxígeno y filtración, con lo cual es un captador de CO2 neto, potente. Hay estudios que dicen que incluso, yo no lo sé, estos son estudios que dicen que una hectárea, por poner una superficie de Posidonia, capta más CO2 que una hectárea de la selva amazónica. Entonces, claro, es responsable de tener unas aguas limpias, que esto forma parte, ya no solamente lo podemos ver con un tema medioambiental, proteccionista, de tener unas aguas limpias, sino también que forma parte de nuestro negocio. Tenemos que tener unas aguas en condiciones, porque si no nuestros visitantes no vendrían, obviamente, y esto se tiene que mantener así, ¿no? También temas de fondeo, campos de boyas, que evitan ya el arrastre de las anclas en el fondo marino. Esto ya están estipulados los espacios donde se pueden anclar para evitar la destrucción involuntaria. Se están haciendo campañas de sensibilización y de información a los visitantes navegantes para saber que ese fondo no es un fondo trivial, sino que tiene una riqueza, en este caso en forma de esta planta, que además no solamente la planta, sino todas las especies de moluscos y peces que le acompañan, obviamente, ¿no? También se adquieren en la parte interior, porque claro, a veces en las islas pensamos en el litoral, pero también tenemos nuestro interior. En el interior tenemos bosques. Estos bosques también se está comprando fincas, extensiones de terreno para el uso y disfrute de todos los ciudadanos, tanto residentes como visitantes, en una intención también conservacionista, incluso en algunas fincas que permita la coexistencia de bosques con agricultura tradicional. También hacemos mucha inversión en temas de la protección forestal. Lamentablemente, la propia globalización, que hay una gran cantidad de movilidad, pero también estos cambios en el clima, la menor pluviosidad que tenemos hace que todos los bosques se estén debilitando, con lo cual aparecen más enfermedades de las esperadas, y eso también puede tener un impacto grave sobre el paisaje. Tener pues unos árboles que ves que se están degradando, se están muriendo, en fin, no es una cosa deseable ni verlos morir de esta forma, ¿no? Hay campañas también de replantación de la propia Posidonia y control de aforos en playas. Ya se está poniendo todo en temas de tecnología, control de afluencia en playas, control, cuantificar cuánta gente hay en playas y poder hacer una gestión, hacer balances, incluso poder llegar a redirigir flujos. Decir, mira, este espacio de playa está muy lleno, te aconsejamos que puedas ir a otro espacio. He dicho antes lo de la oferta ilegal en camas, pero también ya hay que saber que en Formentera ya desde hace un año se ha limitado la entrada de vehículos del continente. Y Mallorca y Menorca, a partir del año que viene, probablemente ya van a aplicar limitaciones parecidas a la entrada de vehículos desde el continente para evitar también tener un control sobre el tráfico en las carreteras, ¿no? Hay que reconocer que el turista de hoy en día es diferente del turista de hace 60 años. Claro. El turista de hace 60 años era un turista estático. Y tal vez en términos... Bueno, no sé si me oye mucha gente ahora, pero tal vez en términos sostenibles mejor que el de ahora, porque venían en paquetes turísticos, se les esperaba en un autobús, se desplazaban en autobús, estaban aprovechando las bondades de la brisa marina, del agua salina, del sol, y se volvían. Ahora no, ahora el turista de ahora busca experiencias y entonces esto tiende a que todo el mundo se tiene que mover. Entonces, este aumento de la movilidad pues también ha provocado problemas en el tráfico y estas son las tendencias de la gente, ¿no? Y entonces en estos aspectos nos tenemos que adaptar. Yo no digo que sea ni bueno ni malo, simplemente expongo los hechos objetivamente y porque no estamos planteando una estrategia de prohibir, pero estamos planteando, hay que poner los hechos para poder tomar resoluciones. En definitiva, nosotros tenemos una serie de objetivos que son limitar la afluencia turística, aumentar nuestra calidad de servicios y de nuestro entorno, tanto urbano como medioambiental, y en esto estamos trabajando. Esta mejora medioambiental evidentemente pasa por la sostenibilidad en los tres ejes, no podemos olvidar la parte económica, importantísima, la parte social, evidentemente, y la parte medioambiental, que es nuestro principal activo. No podemos dejar de perder nuestro medio ambiente, que es lo que nos da valor a un destino turístico como las Islas Baleares y como creo que como casi cualquier otra isla del mundo, porque su principal valor es el valor medioambiental, como también contaba hace un momento el ministro, ¿no? Potenciar también, luchar contra la oferta ilegal, y todas estas cosas necesitamos unos vectores que no son fáciles. Tenemos que luchar contra una legislación europea que a veces en este sentido es un poco encorsetada porque no entiende que el turismo, no entiende que sea una industria, no lo ve como una industria y que por tanto como cualquier otra industria tiene unas externalidades y que se necesitan grandes cantidades de inversión para poder mantener mejoras de calidad, para poder mantener esta sostenibilidad que hemos dicho. Competencias también laborales, se necesita formación. Nosotros también sufrimos un tema que se llama fuga de talento. Tenemos problemas para que muchas nuevas generaciones tal vez ya no se sienten tan a gusto de trabajar en el turismo, y entonces ahí tenemos que ser ahí un poco proactivos, porque creemos que el turismo también nos ha dado una perspectiva mucho mejor del mundo, ¿no? Estamos más abiertos, conocemos otras culturas, otros espacios, ¿no? Y también tenemos una serie, digamos, de dificultades tecnológicas que hay que vencer. Evidentemente, estamos en la línea de la digitalización, la transformación digital, es obvio, no voy a extenderme en este sentido, pero claro, somos conscientes de los nuevos retos tecnológicos que tendremos que afrontar, y hay dos retos, uno de ellos que está muy en boga hoy en día, que es la inteligencia artificial, y otro que no se habla tanto, pero que ya existe, es el campo de la robótica. O sea, robots que podrán apoyar o gestionar determinados trabajos para aliviar ciertas cargas de trabajo en otros entornos, ¿no? Hoy mismo en nuestro hotel pues hay un robot no humanoide, pero que se pasea solo, una especie de rumba, ¿no? Que está limpiando el hall y tal. Pues bueno, esto quita muchos esfuerzos y demás, ¿no? Y yo no sé si me da tiempo para terminar una cosa, y esto ha desembocado, o si el caso me lo... o hacer las preguntas luego.
Quizás, bueno, un minuto, sí, ¿no? Más
o si no te respondo, en las preguntas, o si no ya te habré respondido.
Yo creo que sí, un minuto más o menos si quieres cerrar.
Y ya no te responderé a las preguntas.
Como prefieres. ¿Prefieres que pasemos quizás a las preguntas? O
sí, si hay tiempo.
Perfecto, sí. Muy bien. Pues sí, muchas gracias, Pere, también por este overview, yo creo, realmente exhaustivo.
Rápido, exhaustivo.
¿No? Bueno, rápido, exhaustivo, pero yo creo que has tocado en muchos puntos clave, y también, bueno, has dado una visión muy completa primero de los challenges importantes que tenéis en Baleares, pero también cómo los estáis tratando, ¿no? De forma pues muy directa y estratégica, ¿no? Y has tocado pues la interacción con el sector privado, evidentemente esencial, ¿no? Cómo estáis avanzando en temas de circularidad, siendo muy conscientes de, por supuesto, ¿no? El sector económico en Baleares es fundamental, es un driver absoluto para vosotros, pero también ser muy conscientes, ¿no? De algunas de las externalidades negativas que está provocando, y yo creo que has sido muy claro, ¿no? Exponiendo cómo las estáis intentando pues tratar. Me quedo también con el tema de la educación para el desarrollo sostenible también, Education for Sustainable Development, ¿no? Si, según vuestras encuestas, no sé si has dicho que un tercio de los visitantes dicen que los temas de medio ambiente no les interesan, pues they're also going to enjoy very rich natural resources, recursos naturales muy ricos, pues para que puedan disfrutar de ellos, pues se van a tener que mantener. Entonces, todos estos son temas que claro, ninguno de nosotros no podemos solucionar individualmente, pero certainly collectively we can. De regiones hemos visto, ¿no? Venimos todos de regiones muy distintas del mundo, hemos presentado casos de regiones muy distintas del mundo, pero los challenges al final y las soluciones también son bastante similares. También has tocado el tema de la escasez de agua, fundamental, evidentemente, uno de los grandes challenges, ¿no? a los que tenéis que hacer, that you have to face in islands. Nos quedan quizás un minuto, de hecho, quizás para no acabar de forma tan seca. Quizás no voy a hacer las dos preguntas que tenía previstas. Quizás, no sé si se os ha quedado algo en el tintero. Anything, sorry, you speak Spanish, right?
No,
right. If there's anything, any kind of final thoughts that you wanted to share, something that you thought, okay, I would have wanted to share this, and now maybe is the chance, or if you want to react to anything that that your colleagues might have highlighted, just to give you, if the organizers will just give us a minute to close. So yeah, please go ahead. Sí, quizás empezamos, maybe let's go down the... Okay. ¿Podem començar potser amb el senyor Planas?
Sí, yo simplemente quería añadir dos cosas, dos conceptos que antes en mi exposición no he comentado. Uno de ellos es, a raíz de esta situación, digamos, de necesidad social, el gobierno balear ha puesto en marcha un pacto para la sostenibilidad social y política para ver cómo transformamos nuestro modelo turístico. somos conscientes que no vamos a renunciar a nuestra fuente de riqueza, pero lo tendremos que transformar. Eso es un proceso pionero, al menos en España, donde más de 140 entidades de la sociedad civil, sindicatos, empresarios, asociaciones vecinales, exponen sus puntos de vista, se recogen y vamos a ver esto a dónde nos va a llevar y si podemos encontrar mejores soluciones. Y otra cosa que tenemos que nos ayuda a luchar contra las externalidades negativas es nuestro impuesto de turismo sostenible. Somos la única comunidad autónoma en España que tenemos este impuesto. En Cataluña existe una ecotasa, conocida como ecotasa, que es una tasa municipal, pero en el caso balear tiene una singularidad, es que es un impuesto finalista y que impacta sobre las pernoctaciones, sobre las noches de hotel. Y es un impuesto que se dedica básicamente a luchar contra las externalidades. Es cierto, pero en todo el ámbito de la sostenibilidad turística. O sea, parte del impuesto se puede dedicar a temas culturales, a temas de deporte, a recuperación de bosques, pero especialmente invertimos mucho en el tema del ciclo del agua. Claro. Es fundamental poder tener una circularidad en el ciclo del agua, sobre todo cuando estamos aislados que no tenemos nosotros, no tenemos ríos, ni podemos, digamos, hacer una desalación infinita, aunque técnicamente se podría desalar el agua de mar de forma prácticamente infinita.
Agua subterránea tampoco, ¿no?
Agua subterránea es nuestra fuente,
es la fuente principal,
pero tampoco los podemos agotar.
Claro.
Si queremos garantizar que para las futuras generaciones tener las aguas subterráneas mínimamente, que no estén contaminados los acuíferos y no se salinicen, porque claro, al quitar agua dulce, la presión del agua del mar intentará inundar y dejar inutilizables para futuras generaciones estos acuíferos. Entonces hay que tener...
Un caso muy específico de los acuíferos en las islas,
sí,
porque
sí,
esto es un caso realmente único de las
Es único, que a lo mejor esto en el continente ni se plantea, pero esto daría para otro tanto. Entonces yo simplemente quería saltar esto. Pacto para la sostenibilidad, para modificar, transformar, mejorar nuestro modelo turístico que sea sostenible y circular, y tenemos este impuesto que nos ayuda a dotarnos de fondos para poder invertir y reinvertir en las externalidades.
Muy bien, muchas gracias, Pere, muy claro. Y el tema de la taxation, ¿no? Que este va a ser uno de los grandes temas, yo creo, precisamente, como decías, para garantizar, ¿no?, al máximo posible también este turismo de calidad, ¿no? No será la única arma, pero será
no es la
única, pero será una de las estrategias, ¿no? So just, I think we really have to close, but just to also, if there's anything else, Mr. Minister, that you would like to highlight, something that you forgot to mention, or that might link to one of your colleagues' interventions, just as closing remarks.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your wonderful experience. I think most of what was mentioned here, there are a lot of takeaways also that apply or that are relevant to Zanzibar. The issue of over-tourism, mass tourism, the issue of depletion of your water aquifer, and responsible use of water. I think these are things that also are very much relevant to what Zanzibar has to offer. But since I have this stage also, and we are in Spain, I would also like to take this opportunity to invite all the Spanish people to visit our beautiful islands, tourists, and as well as investors. In the few days that we've been here, I see a lot of commonalities in terms of the way we drive our tourism industry, but also a lot of our shared principles and values, and I think this is very, very important. And I believe that we can forge greater bonds and partnership with our brothers and sisters from Spain, as far as transforming tourism and dictating the type of tourism that we want. And on a final note, for the most part, we engage on these panels, we participate in different forums, and we're very good at presenting the strategies. But ultimately, the way you move things forward is through ownership and collective responsibility. And this is something that I really want to emphasize for everybody that's involved in this industry. This industry might seem soft from the top, but it's actually a very high impact industry. Oftentimes when you talk about tourism, it's more of this impression of happy people having fun. Sure. But the impact of having fun on the environment is very much real. And so collectively, we need to take ownership of that and be mindful of while we are having fun, but we also have to be responsible at the same time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Minister. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, yeah, wonderful way to sort of close this panel. And I was going to say that if I could, I would rename it as something like Pioneering Islands, Common Challenges, Common Solutions, shared solutions, shared challenges. So I think we've seen here that there's a lot of shared experience. And I think that despite the differences, right, a lot of the ideas that we've raised are actually quite interoperable in a way. So thank you so much. And yeah, we'll just close with Teresa. Yeah. So anything that you would like to highlight, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Then we'll bring the panel to a close.
Yeah, just a final and quick thought about also the future of tourism, because actually I think that right times have come to move from sustainable tourism to regenerative tourism, right, which means that we should be able to reconsider all the indigenous knowledge that is part of every single place, every single culture, because if we don't consider the culture, if we don't consider the community, we are losing an important part, which is the spirituality that belongs to that place, belongs to that people. And if we don't do that, all the places are exactly the same, because, I mean, the KPIs that we can use are somehow similar. But if we don't integrate these environmentally based KPIs with social KPIs, spiritual KPIs, heritage, cultural-based one, we won't be able to give back to local community and to the land. Because I've been working with so many community in the Global South, also in Tanzania, and actually what happened is that all the solution to face the crisis, the ecological crisis and the human crisis we are living are there. They know how to do. We just have to enable them. We just have to let them speak and use their strategies, and they are more than prepared to do everything by themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Teresa. And I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of data. No data, sure, but what data? What type? Maybe we need to rethink. Some of the KPIs that we're focusing on. So yeah, I think you really touched on a very important point there. So maybe in the interest of time, and yeah, I just wanted to thank you all, for sort of sticking with us this afternoon. And yeah, please a big round of applause for our speakers today. And really thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. So it's been a pleasure.